I thank you so much, Robin, for taking the time this morning, and thank you for being on the author's table.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Brad. I really appreciate that.
Of course, absolutely. Have to get the names out there, right? We have to
Absolutely,
we
yes.
we have to work as a team.
I agree.
That's
Couldn't
right.
agree more.
Okay, Robin. Well, let's start then. What inspired you, or what was your motivation to start writing?
Okay. Going going back to early times, I kind of always did write. And back then, back in the dark ages, we wrote letters to people.
Hmm.
And people would always say to me, oh, your letter made me feel good. It cheered me up. You made me laugh.
Hmm.
So that for me, that was sort of like that was egging me on that I like to make people laugh. So and then I became an English teacher. And although now I forget like almost all English grammar, but when you teach, you sort of lose that a little bit.
Hmm.
You see it done every other way that it's not supposed to be done, and you start questioning,
That's right. Yeah.
really? Yeah, Anyway, so I always knew that I wanted to write, and there was never time. And then I left teaching, went into advertising, and
Hmm.
met a very bizarre and unusual group of
Oh yeah.
highly emotive people.
Very
So
creative too.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. But it really wasn't until uh, after I had been a buyer of the company. Four of us bought the company, then two of them left. We brought on another guy, and he was really obnoxious. He was a sweetheart until the day he became an equal partner, and then he just turned into this horrible creature.
Mm.
And there wasn't really much I could do. I was stuck there. I was stuck with him. So the only way I had to find an escape. And what I did was I started killing people.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna get into that. Um,
Okay.
but now, like, when you want to sit down and write, like, what's your like the kind of surrounding you like to put yourself in to get in that groove?
Yeah, yeah. Well, usually I've done all my writing on Saturdays and Sundays
Oh.
because I was running a
Okay.
business Monday through Friday. And one of the things I found was don't sit down and write for an hour. That's very frustrating. Sit down and write for 5 hours or 6 hours. So when I knew that I was going to be writing on a weekend, I would get up in the morning, have my breakfast, and then I'd get my little writing thing and put my laptop on it and go find a comfortable seat on the couch or
Hmm.
whatever and start my writing. And I would then write for the entire day. I'd take a quick break for lunch, but that was about it. And then in the summertime at 5 o'clock, I take my computer out to the deck and I finish my last hour out there with a glass of wine. And
Nice.
so, yeah, that's how I treat myself in the summertime.
Yeah, that's wonderful that you did that, because that puts you in your happy place, you know.
That is absolutely that is my happy place. That
Yeah.
and it's funny because I always thought I knew I wanted to write a book, and I actually started to write a book about how we purchased the company.
Hmm.
And I actually still think that it would make a great book and an even better movie. But I got to a certain place with it, and it was it was very painful to write because this was a whole very
Oh yeah.
painful experience.
Yeah.
So dredging up these memories and trying to remember every detail was kind of torturous.
Hmm.
So I would only write at that point a very little bit at a time. And then we got a client at the ad agency that was a publisher. So I took him aside after a meeting one day and I said, "Hey, I'm writing this book, but I'm kind of worried that if I do write it, I might get sued by a lot of different people." And he said, well, you mean like people behaving badly? And I said, very badly. And he said, I think you're fine. I said, I'm not so sure. So he said, well, give me what you've got. And he said, I'll talk to my lawyer. So he came back a couple of weeks later and he handed me my manuscript, such as it was. And he said, my lawyer wants to know, are many of these people dead yet? I said, not yet. And he said, maybe back burner that book and write something else. So that's when I started writing funny murder mysteries.
Yes. Now, are you a self-publisher, Robin, or do you have a
Well,
publisher?
I
Yeah.
started out with sort of a hybrid. The
Okay.
company, it was called Right Life at the time, and they were they were invaluable to me
Hmm.
because I yeah, I was always a stickler about accuracy and not making errors and typos and things like that. And thank God they had editors. Thank God they had help,
Yeah.
help me understand proofreading because I know that I wouldn't have taken it to the extent that they did.
Right.
And
Hmm.
honestly, every time, I mean, there were times when I would get the because I had five on my first book. I had five different editors, and none of them agreed with each other. So
That could be a book by itself, right?
it is a book by itself, and it was funny because I loved my first editor, but of course I didn't meet him. The book was sent to him, and he made the edits, and I didn't love everything he did, but there was something about the notes that he wrote to me, and I felt very connected to him. So I said to my publisher, would it be okay if I met him? Is that a taboo? And she said, no, it'd be okay. So I said, I'd like to buy him lunch. So I bought him lunch at a local restaurant. And when I was sitting down, he said to me, I used to be with the company. And a lot of people said that about my company because, it was global at one point. So a lot of people have been. So there was a part of me that thought he meant my company. But then there was another part of me that said, just shut up and wait a minute. And I sat down. He meant the Bay of Pigs.
Oh,
He,
oh,
he was
jeez.
he was a CIA agent in the Bay of Pigs, and
Oh
he
my
was
gosh.
he was editing my murder mystery. So, but he was the coolest guy. I mean, just such an incredible guy. But none of the editors agreed with each other, and that was actually at first it was so frustrating because his whole thing was sentences way too long, sentences way too long. Then I chopped the sentences down, and then it was like you're starting sentences with but, you're starting sentences with and my fifth editor said, your sentences are too short and
Oh my
choppy.
gosh.
And at first I was ready to kill someone. I said, you gotta be kidding me. But then I realized that it was the best exercise for me to understand how to get a book ready to come out.
Hmm.
So, and the really cool thing was, when the book, my publisher Cindy did everything, and then once the book was out, and I've had speaking engagements. She would come and set up a table, and she'd sell the books, and so it was kind of like being a celebrity,
Yes,
on a very small scale, but you got the feeling of,
that's
I'm
right.
the celebrity here, so that was a very cool thing. Then about a year later, they were sold to another company down south. So automatically, all that personal in
Hmm.
person stuff went away. But I didn't see eye to eye with the new publisher, so I stayed with them for a year. And when I was ready to bring out my second book, it became clear that they were not my choice for the
Hmm.
second book. So that's when I had been talking to a woman here who owned the 13th Street Mystery Bookstore,
Hmm.
and she was a hoot because when I first went in to introduce myself to her before my anything had been published, and I said, well, I have a book coming out, and I wanted to let you know it is a murder mystery. And she said, if I had a quarter for every author that thought their book was coming out, and she kept like, I was like, well, okay, but it is actually coming out. If I had a quarter for, it was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And
I see another book happening.
oh yeah. But so then I said, well, let me try a different road here.
Yeah.
And I said, but it is a murder mystery, but it's really more about the comedy. I said, more like kind of Ivanovich. Oh, Ivanovich, it only took her 4 books to become a formulaic. So,
Yeah.
but I have to say that all of these, negative comments helped me understand
Hmm.
how to do things, I think, differently and better. My second book came out really, really long because my first book was all in Omaha, and I thought, I don't want to get formulaic, so I want to take it out, have it in Omaha, and then another market, and then back. All of that helped me.
Yeah, constructive criticism helps a lot too.
It really does. And
Yeah.
I've always been a proponent of everything I do is perfect, so why should you touch it? So, I mean, it was
Yeah.
hard for me at first, but when I realized how much, And my big fear was, oh, they're going to have these editors come in and they're going to chop whole sections out, and that never happened. It was, you know, you're in a restaurant, but I don't know what it looks like. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, editing was, sure, if there was something that wasn't accurate, I'd fix it. But it was more writing, and the writing part is the part that I enjoy.
That's correct.
Everything else is a hard job,
Right.
you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Now let's talk about your first book, and that is called "Is It Still a Murder, Even if She Was a Bitch?"
That's correct.
And the main character of your books too, Robin, is Donna Lee.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about your first book.
Okay.
Uh, let,
Um, Go ahead. Do you want to ask me something, or do you want me to just
yeah,
start?
just start. Yes,
Just
please.
start. Okay. So Donna Lee, I will say, people that know me and read the book say that they can hear my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at first I was worried that that was a negative thing, but in a lot of times in reading other people's work, I think in my case, because of the way I'm trying to do
Mm-hmm.
things, it actually turns out that it's a positive thing. So, they say write about what you know, and I know me, and I know advertising, I know
Yes.
Omaha, and I know how it is to feel like you want to kill someone. you know. So I thought that
Yeah.
what I tried to do with the first book, and then subsequently with the other two, was have it be a cozy murder mystery, but make sure there was humor in it,
Mm-hmm.
but also make sure that I broke some of the traditions. So I didn't make it like, because one of the things cozy murder mysteries tend to do is, oh no, I'm interfering with the investigation, and Sergeant Bob will be mad at me. And then Sergeant Bob yells at you for 3 pages, and then you feel chastised, and then you say, I'm going to do it anyway.
You broke
So
the
none of that.
formula.
I broke that formula.
Yes.
And so what I do is I say that the police, we work companionably together, and they are very respectful of insights that I bring to them. And then there are moments where um, I'm questioning the head of the investigation as to, like, is she mad at me that I'm, and she gives me a vague answer. So then I assume that she means, yes, I want your help. So the character herself is flawed in the way that we are all flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And so she hears what she wants to hear sometimes, and uh does what she's going to do anyway. But one of the other things that I broke is that invariably in these murder mysteries, the mysterious caller with the disguised voice who wants to meet the amateur sleuth at midnight in a dark place. And I get that phone call, and by the end of the phone call, the guy is like in tears and apologizing to me, because he's a good guy and he's trying to be helpful. But I'm like, are you crazy? Do you think, honest to God, I'm not that stupid. I'm not going to do that. So there are a number of myths like that. I know when my father-in-law read the first book, he said, there's one thing that you're missing. You don't ask anybody for an alibi. And that's the thing that annoys me too. I have a lot of pet peeves about cozy mysteries. It's like, if I'm an amateur sleuth and I go up to you and I don't know you and I said, give me your alibi, you're going to punch me in the face, and you would be right to do so. So, I go about it different ways, and kind of a lot of stumbling and fumbling. And
Mm-hmm.
also, as with a lot of cozy mysteries, I really don't end up solving the crime. It kind of comes to me to solve itself. And so I'm honest about, but humble
Yeah.
about, oh, I really did nothing. And I really did very little in each of them. But as is true in, like, certainly in school or in business, a lot of times you get the credit for something and you're like, boy, all I did was pick up the phone and say hello, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Right.
So I it's funny because a lot of people that are in ad agencies are writers and they write books, and they're all business books. And I have a pet peeve against business books. I think they, for the most part, take one 5-minute idea and blow it out into 300 pages. I feel like my books are business books because they teach you how to deal with crazy people that you're working with.
Mm.
And,
That's true. Yeah, that's
and
correct.
it is true.
Yes.
So, and my one of my editors of the first book sent me a note, and she said the murder victim and this Clovis, my other character, are not believable as humans. And I was like, they're real people. I mean, they
Yeah.
are real people.
I may be writing about them, but they're real.
Exactly, exactly. Well, one of the things I did learn very early on is that the publishing company I was working with at the time was started by a college professor. So all of the editors were academicians, and it's so the distinction between real life and and
Hmm.
academic life is so profound. I mean, I think it was my second or third editor that said, uh, "You can't say I went into the restaurant and ordered a Coke. You have to say Coca-Cola." And I was like, "Oh no, you know, no,
I put in what I want to put in.
exactly." Well, and it took me a while to realize that what they were saying, those were suggestions,
Right.
and if I refused to take any of their advice, my publisher would have put me out. But most of their advice I felt was very helpful,
Hmm.
and so I felt like I did get a lot from it. And then when they said something like that, I just ignored it and left it the way it was
And moved on. Yeah,
and moved on.
that's right.
Yes.
Now, your second book, Robin, is called I Didn't Kill Her, but That May Have Been Short Sighted.
Yes. Yes. And that book is different in the sense that um, the relationship in the book between me and the murder victim is is real. It happened. The incidents that are discussed as examples of my association with her, I won't say friendship, she was
Hmm.
never a friend, those things really did happen.
Mm.
And it happened when I lived in Connecticut, and I worked at an ad agency there. And after I killed my first murder victim, who was someone who should have been killed, I realized that this was a woman in my life who, she was the classic. There's a whole category of women that don't support women at all. In fact, they go out of their way to hurt other women because they want to be the woman that rises to the top.
Hmm.
And she was that person. When I arrived at the company where we worked together, she was the wonderkind. She was a superstar, and it was only because we had an account that a helicopter account that my boss didn't want to work on, and so she threw it at this woman. It was our biggest account, and she was a big star. And then I come along, and I'm trying to just learn from both of them. But this woman determined that I was a threat, and she did horrible things to me. I mean, she would write me a memo and then hide it. And then in front of a group of people, she would ask me a question about it. And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to." "Oh, you lost my memo again?" And I,
Mm.
found the one time that she did that, I found it on her desktop unfinished. So,
Mm.
and so she was doing everything she could to sabotage me. And actually, I inadvertently sabotaged her, but I really, honest to God, didn't know it, because she used to, every year before the day before Thanksgiving, she would take the day off and stay home all day cooking. So it was the day before Thanksgiving. I was at my desk. She wasn't there. Well, I knew that because I knew she was home cooking. And I have to admit to being a little bit slow, because her husband called me. Her husband had never called me. And he called me up and he said, "Robin, where is she?" And I said, "Tom, don't be silly. She's home cooking." She was not home cooking. She was in a motel somewhere. They ended up getting a divorce, and she married the guy that was in the
Oh
hotel
my
with her.
gosh. Mm.
So yeah, but I didn't. I would never have. She didn't. Take me into her confidence. She didn't like me, and that was a
Oh,
mistake.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And then so you end up writing a book about that too.
kind of. Yeah,
Yeah.
and funny thing is, I didn't even put that in the book. I don't
Yeah.
think. But even so, there was enough.
Yes. Yeah.
There was plenty in there. So, but that helped too, and I brought in a lot of other characters that I knew from past life in Connecticut, and that was kind of fun bringing them in. And
Yes.
but ended up being a much longer book. But but it starts in Omaha, then it moves to Connecticut for some investigation, then it moves back into Omaha. So it just, what I'm happy about, one thing, there's no filler in it, because that's another one of my pet peeves, that you know a lot of times they go down this corridor where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you ran out of stuff to say,
Yeah,
didn't
that's
you?
right.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah. Now,
and
okay.
that's easy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, that's right. Now let's talk about your third book, and
Okay.
it's on the back wall there. I
Yes.
don't know
Yeah.
why they killed him. He wasn't really uh, that annoying.
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So let's talk about
Well,
that one.
all right. Um, in that book, because I was paranoid about becoming formulaic, the way the mystery bookstore woman warned me, I decided that I had to have more of a theme to that book, other than being in an ad agency in Omaha and people that I knew. So it's the first book where it's about the wine industry, and
Hmm.
it's about some fraudulent behavior in the wine industry. And a client of mine is also a personal friend, and he's in the wine industry, and he's also an investigator within the wine industry. And in the beginning, near almost the beginning of the book, his car gets blown up, so he's killed. So then I have to. It was the hardest book for me to write because I never killed a friend before, and it got very sappy. So, I had to go back in. I started writing it. So once I wrote the first book, I started the second book
Mm-hmm.
while I was waiting for the first edit to come through. And that's what kind of kept me sane while I was going through, because I went through like 5 rounds of editing, and the edits took like 4 to 5 months each. So
Mm.
it was waiting, a lot of waiting. So I was writing the second book. So by the time I had published the first book, I was close to ready with the second. It was ready to go, to get into processing, to start to get ready to be published. So I decided to do that with the third book and start it. And but the problem was, here I had one book out and I was trying to do all these speaking engagements, and then I had the other book going through the process of editing, so I didn't have that time to spare. So I just really didn't have time to focus on the third book. So I said, okay, it was really hard, it was grueling, and I said, I'm going to have to get halfway through, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid if I don't get halfway through, I won't finish it. But I don't like to waste my time. So if I put that much time into it, I know I'll go back and finish it. So it sat for probably close to 2 years. And I went back and I said, oh, this is god awful. It's bad. And so then I really started to think about it. It's the first time I always write a book just like from beginning to end and just go
Mm-hmm.
through it. I don't know
Just
what I'm going to say. I don't have an
you're
outline,
just letting it
but I
flow.
I just let it flow.
Yes.
But with
Mm-hmm.
this book, it wasn't flowing so well. So I said, I've got to think. So I stopped everything and I started to think, if I don't have a fabulous ending, then the beginning of this book it's got to be fixed anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
so I so a light bulb went on. I came up with the ending that I had to. It was like fate meant it to be there, and I couldn't have done that a year before, because it involved my former partner, the guy who started me
Mm-hmm.
writing in the first place. And I wrote my ending, and then I was able to go back and fix the whole front end, and then writing the rest of it just flowed
Just
beautifully, and
fell in place.
it fell into place. So
Mm-hmm.
that was great for me, because I was very worried about that third book, because I said, I don't know if I can fix this, you know.
And you
But
did.
I did. I made myself happy, and
That's right.
that's what you have to do.
That's right. Now,
Yeah.
now looking back at your books, Robin, what was the most gratifying?
So gratifying in the sense of,
Like achievement, happiness of saying, "Man, I did this."
well, I think uh, the single most gratifying thing was I got some a messenger message from a writer in Hollywood, a
Hmm.
comedy writer in Hollywood. And he sent me this little thing, and it just said, hey, you don't know me, but I think your writing is terrific and really funny. And I just wanted to let you know, hope you and your family are well. And I printed that out and I framed it. That to me was it doesn't get any better. I mean,
That's
I really appreciate when people read my book. I really
absolutely.
appreciate when they buy. I'm happy if they read it and they didn't buy it, but if they bought it, that makes me even happier. But this was somebody who, um, out of the blue, I didn't ask him. Out of the blue, he felt the need to say that to me, and that meant more to me than
That speaks
really anything.
that
And
speaks volumes, doesn't it?
yeah, and I
Hmm.
thought to myself, I I look at books now and I see what celebrities are doing or if they say anything, and I think there are so many celebrities out there that could help us
Oh,
if
absolutely.
they, they're reading books, if they could just say something. That, I mean, the classic is Oprah or Ellen, and that's what, some there was a survey that came up and it said, what's the hardest thing about trying to market your book? And I said, the fact that Oprah hasn't sponsored it. you know but they're sponsoring books very often that are written by other celebrities, and the rest of us are here, and we need the exposure. And if, like, there's so many comics out there, if any one or two of them latched on to
Oh,
somebody's
hmm.
work, they could make a huge difference, and they wouldn't cost them a dime, and they wouldn't
Right.
have to,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
but that was what really meant that meant so much to me. And I look at every time, if I get a little discouraged, I look at that and I think, okay, I feel like, that's something
Hmm.
that's really
It's
important.
it's that little boost.
It really is. But I mean, but every little comment or note that I get,
Hmm.
um, I sent my first book to some relatives, and most of them didn't even acknowledge that they got it. It's like, seriously, you don't acknowledge a gift
Yeah.
even. But then these two aunts on my husband's side, who I never dawned on me. They both wrote me the most beautiful notes, and a cousin that I never see. And those are the things I keep every one of them,
Hmm.
and those are the things that make me so happy because, they're genuine and heartfelt, and
Hmm.
you know, that's what really means a lot to me. If somebody says to me, "You made me laugh," um, that makes my month.
Yeah,
I
because you,
love.
you think yeah you think about all the hard work and that you had to go through to get it to a published piece, and then
Right.
someone to actually tell you, thank you, or it's a great read, it's whatever. It
Yes.
says a lot.
It does mean so much. And it's like they talk about people that, somebody in their family died, and a lot of people went to the funeral, and that makes them feel good. And you think, well, how does anything make them feel good? But yes,
Hmm.
it's true. Sometimes just gestures mean so much, and that's just very true. I read, there was a famous author. She was one of the authors of the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and she wrote a book. And she it was very, very eye opening. And she said at one point she had a reading at a bookstore, and she said it was a pretty good reading, and she felt good about it. And she said years later she saw an interview with the owner of that bookstore, and he was talking about that reading. And he said, I was so embarrassed, nobody showed up for the reading, so I made all my employees grab books and get in line for her to sign them because I was so embarrassed. And she read that and she said it threw her completely, because she had, that was a memory that meant a lot to her, in
Hmm.
terms of that she had been doing well, and when she found out that that was just a farce, it really undermined her. And I can
Yeah.
see that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Robin, do you see any new adventures for Donna Lee?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. Through it's My husband's kind of an interesting guy, and he picks up friends all over the world. And he actually has picked up a friend who, she and her sister are both Olympic skiing gold medal winners.
Oh my gosh.
And it's yeah, it's the he's and it's just by happenstance. I mean, he doesn't set out to do this, but he just sort of stumbles around, and there they are, and they become friends. So so through him, I've sort of gotten to know her a little bit. And when I hurt my knee skiing, she gave me advice and everything. And she has asked me to write my next book and make her either the killer or the murder victim. So I'm having a little bit of a challenge because I thought to myself, if I take an Olympic gold skiing medalist and I make her a murder victim, that's not going to be good for my brand. And if I make her a murder victim, or no, I'm sorry, if I made her a murderer, that's not going to be good for her brand. So I said to her, what if we're co-detectives together? She said, nope, I want to be the murderer or the murder victim. So I'm still pondering that. And when I figure
Hmm.
that out, that'll be the
Change
fourth
change
book.
the name.
Oh, definitely. Well, what I do is I always ask people, do you want your name in there or do you want me to change your name? And it's funny because almost invariably pick, they say, use my first name, but use my mother's maiden name. So
Ah,
I've got a lot of,
okay.
yeah. So it's, I've noticed that trend as I ask different people. Now I have one friend who's a woman who said, use my name, but spell it differently, so I try to go along with,
There's
or if
protect.
somebody says, yeah, here's the name I would like to have. I say, okay, we'll use
Yeah,
that name. So,
that's
yeah,
that's awesome. Now I like this next one, Robin. Now you have a blog called Monologues.
yes,
Let's talk about that one.
okay. So back in the early days of blogging, I date myself again. I had been through a fairly harrowing experience with a hysterectomy and menopause and all this stuff. So, and I did with it what I do with everything that's painful. I turn it into comedy.
Hmm.
So my business partner, Kim, came to me one day and said, "You need to write a blog about monologues." And I said, "Come on, get out of here. I'm not. How can you do that? I mean, what is it got, like a month's worth of stuff, and then you're out of stuff?" And no, 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 you need to. She named it Monologues, and we had our artists put together, the whole
Hmm.
page, the blog, and everything. So I started writing it, and it was interesting because it actually did get picked up by a couple of public sites, and there were a couple of women oriented, and it was funny because, and what they said was, at the time, if you were looking for information on monologues, which women almost never do because it's an avoidance. It's like looking for
Hmm.
information on death.
Right.
You're going to die, but you don't want to really read about it. Monologues is the same thing. No woman is ever old enough to go through menopause, so she's never going to read about it. So all these really smart women were hitting menopause and going, these are important choices in my life. These will affect the rest of my life, and I know nothing about this. And
Hmm.
what we found was out there at the time was either very dry, medical, jargony crap, or just funny stuff, but nothing that would teach you anything. So, what Menalogs tries to do is give you some real information, but make you laugh along the
Right.
way.
Yeah.
And for me, it was easy because this is what happened. And the very beginning of it is, these are the things that happen to me. Don't let them happen to you. And then it got into fashion for women who have had hysterectomies and all kinds of things like that. And not only did it get picked up by All Tops and another, I can't even think of the name of the site, but I actually got contacted by one of the large publishing companies.
Mm.
They started running ads for their magazines, and the way they do that is, they run ads in your blog, and if they get subscribers directly because of your blog, then they'll pay
Oh.
you X amount
Hmm.
of money. So, it took off more than I could have expected. And I wrote it for about 4 years. And I have to say, because you asked with the book, what was the shining moment? I um, Somehow a woman I went to high school with found out about my blog, and apparently a friend of hers was going through a really, really difficult time, was having a lot of emotional problems because of the physical problems. And she told her to read my blog. And this woman I knew from high school got back to me and said, you probably don't remember me, but this is what happened. And this woman said that the blog saved her life. And, that was just, that in a million years, I would never have guessed that. But that's what they say. Sometimes when you're in a very dark place,
That's
just a
right.
little bit of kindness or a little hope
That's
is
right.
all that you really need. And whatever little thing that I did that touched her and helped her, if nothing else came of it, that made it worthwhile, the whole experience.
That's right. Yeah. Now, now, what advice, Robin, can you give to someone that's just starting out? They're starting out to be a writer, or just what good advice can you give them?
Um, the the main thing is to you have to manage your expectations. Whatever happens, you're going to get rejected. Your stuff is going to get criticized. No matter what you write, you're going to have
Hmm.
trolls that are going to come in and say terrible things about it. Um, People aren't going to want to buy the book when you think they should. Um, and sometimes you're going to have a book signing and one person's going to show up. And you
Right.
know what? If that one person is nice and says good things, then it's okay. But you go to those book signings and you think, oh, there's going to be a line around the corner. That almost never happens. So you're lugging all these books with you. You're lugging all your posters and all your paraphernalia. You set it all up. You give a giant chunk out of your day, and one person comes through and buys your book. And you know what? That happens, and that will happen, and it happens to pretty much all of us. Um, I read Malcolm Gladwell did a blog about, and it was about writing. And, he's like possibly the most famous business book writer right now. And he said, we don't make money from our books. He said, what we do with our books is we get awareness so that we get paid speaking engagements. And
Yep.
I was shocked,
Hmm.
that even Malcolm Gladwell could say that. So, and the thing is, no matter what you do, unless you become Malcolm Gladwell, you're not going to make a really good, decent living on your books unless you got 50 books out there and they're all making a little bit of money. Um, there's not an influx of money that you
Right. Yes.
think there could be, and of course your work is brilliant and wonderful. So why don't people appreciate it? Just remember, Jane Eyre was never popular until she was dead. So I mean,
Yeah. You're more rich a lot. You're more rich dead than you are alive.
exactly.
Yes.
All of your descendants
Yes.
get the actual money, and you get the frustration while you're alive. So,
And I
you
think the
know,
biggest part too is the marketing.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh God, yes, yeah.
And as a self-publisher too, it's the excitement too though, because it's all you. You know.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. And that's, I mean, on another side note, that there are so many scammers out there. And I see, I'm on a lot of author in a lot of author groups, which is how I get some interviews, like
Hmm.
this one.
Hmm.
And I see these neophytes putting this message out on Facebook. I'm going to write a book. Tell me who'll publish it for me. And my heart just breaks when I read that, because if that's the way you're going to approach it, it's going to be one huge disappointment. You know,
Hmm.
you've got to think about what. One of the things that helped me was there was a woman that I worked with who was writing Harlequin romances specifically for Afro Americans, and she was brilliant, a very good writer, very gifted writer. And I read a lot of her stuff, and I had to sit alone in a room, dark room, and I would be blushing by myself in the dark room when I was reading her. But her stuff was really good, and she was making pennies for every book that she. And I asked her about it, and but it helped me so much not have that level of disappointment when I realized that every
Hmm.
time I go to a bookstore, there isn't going to be a line around the corner. But I asked her, why do you do this? You put so much work into it and you get pennies for each of your books. She said, I do it because I get invited to writers' conferences and I get to speak there and I get to meet all these people. So
Hmm.
you have to figure out what your goal is, and your goal has to be realistic, or you're just going to be disappointed,
That's right.
every step of the way.
And the big thing too is networking.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes.
that's probably one of the biggest keys right there.
Getting in with those author groups. I know because a friend of
Hmm.
mine said I inspired him and he wrote a book, and he's not doing anything. It's just sitting there and languishing. And I was telling him, you just join some of these groups and
Hmm.
get some interviews and get your but he's just like, well, I'm busy with other stuff. And I said,
Yeah.
you know what, if you were thinking about writing a book, I'd say fine, but you wrote the book,
That's
you bought the cover, you wrote the book, you might
that's
as well
right.
do something to
That's right.
market it.
Absolutely.
So
Now,
anyway.
Robin, do you have a website?
I do, yes. It's rldonovan.com.
Okay. And now, when is your next book signing event?
I don't have anything set up. I mean, I have to say COVID really messed up my I kind of
Hmm.
mostly what I do is like right now is like if somebody asks me to do a book club or something like that, and I do them on the phone. I do them on a Zoom call or and I actually I was approached by an organization in Minneapolis, and they asked me if they could have a set of my books to auction off in a charity thing, and I said sure. So I sent the books, and then they called me and they said, "Hey, we have another favor to ask you." And I said, "Sure." And they said, "Can we offer, along with the books, whoever gets the books can have a book club with, and you'll join them?" And I said, "Yeah." So it was a family that was some of them were from Minneapolis, but they said their family was all spread out all over the country, and they wanted to do a reading and a book club and a discussion of my book with the whole family. So that was kind of fun.
Absolutely, yes.
So I should really get off my butt and get some more, you know.
Yeah, it's not like you're not doing anything. You have a lot of things on your plate too.
Yeah, I mean, I want the day that I retire is the day that I'm going to have more of hopefully a set schedule on, and I'm hoping that day will be fairly soon, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, Robin, this has been a real treat this morning, and
Well, thank you, Brad.
of course, and and I wish you the very best. And please keep in touch.
Okay, that's great. And Brad, I wish you the best as well.
Well,
And I
thank
would
you.
love to keep in touch with you.
Well,
Thank
thank
you so much.
you're very welcome, Robin, and you have a wonderful day.
All right, you too,
Thank
Brad.
you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.